Right, welcome to the laser level review. Today I'm looking at the Huepar HP 603CG 3D multi-line laser in green. So we'll just see what we get in the box. So we get the laser itself, which has got your 3 laser outputs. It gives you the 3 lots of 360 lines. Put that there. We've got a magnetic base, which that sits onto. We've got a mains charger. In the base of the unit I've already got fitted a lithium ion rechargeable battery, which looks like an old style camcorder battery. And we've also got a standard AA battery caddy as well. Also a target, laser target to help pick up the line, and an instruction manual. So looking at the laser itself, it's got the 3 laser outputs. It's got a locking switch for the pendulum, and when you unlock it, the lasers are allowed to be emitted, and you've got a switch which turns on the other lines. So that's with all 3 of the lines. They're a full 360, which goes all the way around your room. So you've got 2 verticals and 1 horizontal. So horizontal for level. The verticals give you a floor cross and a ceiling cross, which is great for plumbing up and down, as well as giving you vertical alignment and horizontal level. And you can select exactly which lines you want on at any one time. Pendulum lock. I'm glad to see a pendulum lock. A lot of lasers, particularly the tool brands, don't have a pendulum lock. If you don't have a lock, it means that there's a pendulum banging around, and if you've got that in the back of your ute or truck going over rough ground, it's going to be banging around. There's potential to take it out of calibration over a long period of time. As you can hear, that's the pendulum knocking it around. So that has got a lock, so when it's in transit, nothing can happen. The feel of it feels really nice. It's got rubberized side corners on there. The laser outputs, they've got a metal cover on them, which gives them protection if they're dropped, that it's not going to break the important bit, which is the actual laser output inside of there. So the feel feels pretty good for this laser. Now, just to say, a lot of what I'm going to say about this unit are the same as with the 602 CG, which is a toon beam version, so it doesn't have the one of the verticals, which means it just gives you vertical and horizontal. Doesn't give you the plums, doesn't give you the squares. Just the 2 beam. To be honest, I'd always go the 3 beam. And also the red version, which gives you the red laser output. Most things I say will be relevant to that as well. There's also a Bluetooth version of this, and effectively the laser itself is the same. It just means that it's got a Bluetooth transmitter in there, which can talk with an app on your phone, and which gives you some remote control, so you can switch on and off lines and things like that. To be honest, I can't see a lot of value in that, but to be fair, I haven't had to play with it, so I don't know. So that's the laser itself. As you can see in the bottom, you've got 2 thread sizes for mounting on a tripod. You've got your standard 5/8 of an inch survey thread, and also your 1/4 inch camera thread, which is very handy. And as I showed you before, the battery goes under there. The unit comes with a magnetic base, which also has the tripod mounts, and there's your magnets on there, and that just screws straight onto the bottom of the unit. Fairly basic. It's got reasonable strength to it. I've tried onto a reasonable piece of steel, and it does seem to sit quite well. But it doesn't have any features. Some units on the market will give you ability to raise and lower the unit to get it to the height that you want, and some will also have a bit of a bracket on it, so that you can screw it into woodwork and use it as a wall mount. But as it stands, it's a pretty reasonable bracket. Charger, so for charging up your lithium-ion battery, and as I said before, the target and your standard battery holder. Accuracy. Now the accuracy stated on this unit is plus or minus 3 mil over 10 meters, and I tested the accuracy of this particular unit that I got, and one axis is around about the 2 in 10, and the other axis was around about the 1 in 10, so within the tolerance that they've specified. More expensive units do have a better tolerance, but to be honest, for the range that you're going to be using this at, and the sort of things you're going to use it for, the accuracy is plenty good enough. The brightness of the laser, it's a green beam, which doesn't necessarily mean it's brighter than, let's say, a red beam, but it is very bright. It is classed as a class 2 output, which is less than 1 milliwatt. I've tried this alongside a class 3 green beam, and to be honest, the outputs were very similar brightness, so I haven't got equipment to test that that actually is at the 2 milliwatt or the 1 milliwatt, but you've got to feel that it's a bit more than that, to be honest, but it is stated as a class 2. I can see it clearly in sort of a warehouse situation at 20-30 meters, so for your normal home renovation type stuff, it's got plenty of range for you. It's a very crisp, clean line. At about 20 meters it starts to thicken out and become a little bit fuzzy, but as always with lasers, you just pick the middle of the beam, and that's your level point. What else? So as I said, with the lines, you've got your turn it on again. You've got your horizontal, vertical, second vertical, and your horizontal again, and that gives you a plumb floor to ceiling, which is good for transposing points. If, for instance, you're putting downlights in, it's easier to measure it out on the ground, mark it on the ground, and then just put your laser over your marks, transpose it to your mark on the ceiling, and you're done. 90-degree square, so if you want to square off cabinets or internal walls or things like that, very handy for that. Of course, level for all your leveling type stuff. 360, so it goes all the way around the room. So you've got pretty much everything covered. One more feature this laser's got is that it's got a pulse mode, which is this other button here, and what that does is that it effectively pulses the laser beam very quickly. You won't actually see the beam pulse, although with the strobe effect of the video it may have some sort of effect, but basically it makes it look a little bit dimmer. But it means that in pulse mode it can be used with an electronic line receiver that's capable of picking up a green beam, and then it means you can use this laser outdoors in any lighting conditions for leveling or alignment or anything else. So with electronic receiver, basically a unit which sees this beam and tells you if you're above or below the line, and do your leveling. And I've tested that with a laser receiver, and I got up to about 40 meters outside. So good for decking, small shed slabs, that sort of general outdoor leveling work as well. That's an option which you can pick up. It doesn't come with the kit as it is. Things I've noticed, this unit doesn't have any outside access to recalibrate, which a lot of units do. Some of the tool companies like your Bosches and your DeWalts don't, which make them a lot harder to calibrate. And this one would have to be in the harder to calibrate basket as well, without those little screw covers allowing you to get a screwdriver in there to adjust the weights on the pendulum. I'll open this up a little bit later and have a look and show you what the inside looks like for that terms of quality. So let's have a look inside. As you can see, I've got the top off the unit now, which was just a case of 4 screws. I wouldn't recommend taking it apart unless you know what you're doing. But basically it comes apart and you can see the mechanism in there. First impressions of the inside, I'm very impressed with the bearing mechanism and also the pendulum mechanism. With these smaller lasers, they tend to have very small bearings in them, and the smaller the bearing, the more chance the bearing is going to get damaged. And because it's using gravity, I'll turn it on to show you the pendulum working. Because using gravity to find level, you can see it swaying around there. If there's any inaccuracies in the bearing, if there's any friction in the bearings, it's not going to level correctly. So the bearings in here are actually better than some of the ones I've seen in more expensive units. So that's a good thing. Looking at the calibration, if we ever needed to recalibrate this, so if it got a bit of a tumble and it knocked it out of whack, it's going to be really hard to calibrate. And the reason is that the calibration points are well inside the units down there, and that's the weights you move around, and also they're not particularly designed with a very fine adjustment on them. So to calibrate one of these is going to be very, very difficult. The rest of the construction, this is very good. This chassis here is very good. It's mounted on a plastic component here, which isn't the greatest, and it's only mounted on the back. So if it had a major fall, I could see it as snapping or cracking this bracket. And once you did that, that's the end of the story for it as well. But it's not an expensive unit, so it's one of those things. It's not the cheapest one out there, it's not the most expensive one out there. It's somewhere in the middle. The general build quality is very good on it. It's not very serviceable, but at the price points, you don't expect great serviceability anyway. So if you look after your tools, it's going to do the job for you. So a bit of a conclusion on this. It's not a bad unit at all, really, for the price. With the lithium-ion battery, you know that you're not going to be burning through batteries all the time, which your very cheap ones you see don't have a lithium-ion battery, or they have a very small lithium-ion battery. You've got the flexibility of using your standard A cells if you need to as well. The brightness is very good. The accuracy is fine, and the accuracy of this particular unit is well within their stated specifications. Longevity, if it's going to get treated roughly, it's going to be a throwaway unit because you're not going to be easily able to get that recalibrated. A lot of places just won't do it because it just would take longer than the value of the unit deserves, and that's just the way it is. Some of your more expensive ones you can calibrate easier, and so it's more of a long-term tool. And bear in mind your expensive Bosches and DeWalt's, they're not easy to calibrate either, and so again a lot of places won't recalibrate those. But for a value for money, 3D, 3 lots of 360 green beam line laser, it's a good option to look at. Alright, well I hope that's been of some help, and please leave me a feedback, visit my website where there's a more in-depth review in text, and I hope to see you next time.